All right. Well, Han says we're ready to go. Um, Welcome everyone to the webinar. We're going to have a lot of fun here. We're going to cover a lot of information in a short period of time. What I would recommend that you do is to bring out your phone, bring out your laptop, your iPad, whatever it is that you need to take notes, and even a pen and piece of paper, because we're going to cover a lot of information in a short period of time. And it's not going to be one of those average webinars that you see where someone just talks and goes slide after slide after slide after slide. This is going to be a complete interactive webinar all the way from the start to the very beginning. So if you would please bring out your phone right now if you use it for Twitter and tweet with the hashtag pound OREAYPN. And then also you have my name, Doug DeVitri, to follow along. So this is really how you're going to feel by the end of the webinar. Like Les Brown says, if information could change people, everyone would be rich, skinny, and happy. And there's so much information that's out there, it's so easy to be able to get overwhelmed. So let's pretend right now if we went to a buffet and there's a lot of different ways that you can start to choose from, right? If you're maybe right here, here's the eggs, and then here's the bacon, and here's the hash browns, and then here's the fruit. Now, if you ate everything that was part of the buffet, how would you end up feeling? You probably feel something like this. So I would encourage you as we start to share some of these ideas, these concepts, these tools, these strategies, and these operations that you can plug and play into your business, is to not just get so overwhelmed that you just don't do anything, but you're able to take at least one idea that you're able to implement. So how can you get the most out of this webinar? What I would recommend doing is execute multiple intelligence in order to activate the learning. What do you mean by that, Doug? No one's ever said anything like that before. Well, gosh, you have logic. So as you start to take notes, pen to paper, or finger to iPad or digital device, you're actually typing down the notes in some sort of logical sequence. I'd also encourage you to embrace visual. So maybe that's going to be drawing certain things that are going to happen on your piece of paper, such as we're going to do some Venn diagrams, or we're going to do some other things that are going to encompass a visual type of learning. Then I'll also say, as far as the next type of intelligence would be kind of your body or your kinesthetic. And so by you texting and you typing and you getting involved with the chat, you're going to be able to get more out of this webinar than you ever have before. So by you actively participating, you're actually going to reinforce some of the things that we're going to be able to share. So if you see a new tool that you've never seen before, maybe you tweet it out, with the hashtag, and then also myself, so I know that you're participating. Also, I would encourage you to go and visit the hashtag or YPN when you go search for it on Twitter, because that way you can find a good accountability partner. So many times you take plenty of notes, but then you have nobody to hold you accountable. Unfortunately, the technology doesn't hold people accountable. People hold people accountable. So try and find somebody you can partner up with to say, hey, what were you able to implement as a result? And then finally, put a due date on when you're actually going to make sure that those items are done. Now, I would encourage you to relax, have fun. We're gonna cover a lot of different tips. So I'm so glad that you're here, being open to new ideas that are going to help grow your business. So here's some of the 3 things that you're going to be able to learn to be able to take away. Number 1 is being able to differentiate your business strategy so you can increase sales and decrease labor. Imagine that. You'll be able to make more money and work less. Second, how do you streamline your operations so that systems and virtual staff increase your productivity so you can focus on top performer tasks? Now, I'm going to make an assumption that you are a real estate sales professional and that your goal or your aspiration is to be a top producer in your market. If it's not, maybe you might want to think of it from an administrative standpoint on how you can support somebody who's the top performer, or maybe it's the CEO of the organization. And then third is how to decrease your operational costs that are not providing an adequate return on investment. I know part of budgeting says that for every dollar it becomes a sales professional. Well, if those dollars aren't providing a return, then maybe it's time that you allocate those dollars somewhere else, or maybe just don't spend them at all. So as far as how do you measure the success of your business, I always like to show this little app. Maybe you've seen it before. It's an app called Fitbit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show this to you so you see kind of like what it looks like. And really what it does is it allows you to track what your health or your activity is. So for example, right here, this is the different activity that I've had for today. I'm going to kind of scroll down and move so you can see a little bit better visual. So this morning when I woke up, you can see when I started walking. And then if I go back towards yesterday, you can see when I was active during the day on Monday. You can see when I was active on Sunday. And what this is, all this is a little tool that I wear in my hip pocket that tracks how many steps that I'm able to walk, or that I do walk. We probably ask, well, what happened here? What happened on this day? Oh, well, there's some activity here. But what happened here on Wednesday? What happened here on Tuesday? And you're probably going to say, well, gosh, was your physical health important to you? And so sometimes we make excuses for ourselves and the reasons why we don't do what we're supposed to do in order to improve the result that we're trying to get. So as far as the metrics of being a performance-driven professional, I'd like for you to take a look at the metrics for your own personal life. So you probably say, well, why isn't there any activity? Well, maybe you could say that I was comatose. Maybe you could say that, well, gosh, maybe Doug didn't wear it. Well, maybe Doug didn't. Maybe it wasn't important for him for his physical health. And I find that these same things not only translate for our personal lives, but also into our business lives as well. So as we move forward here, just please understand that everything that you can do can be specifically tracked. And as we get down to it, you're going to see as we describe some of these things in a way that you've never seen before. So what is a performance-driven professional? And it really revolves in three specific categories. And I'm going to draw these out for you one by one. Number one is the technology. Do you have the technology, the systems, and the tools to be able to support it, what it is that you do? The next thing, as far as being a performance-driven professional, is to be able to use the right language when communicating with customers, with clients, with prospects, and even your specific staff. The next is the skill sets. So just because you have the information in your head or you have the language in your head doesn't necessarily you can translate it to your clients. So what you end up finding is, let's say that you have the technology and you have the technology. Let me back up here. You have the language and you have the skill sets, but you don't have the technology. Well, then I would probably classify you as a dinosaur. Maybe you already have the right technology, and maybe you already have the language of the sale, but you don't have the specific skill sets. Well, then I would probably say that you're postal. And let's say that you have the technology and you have the skill sets, but you don't have the specific language. Then you can be classified as a doorknob. Meaning the doorknob is there and somebody can open the door, but actually they don't have the knowledge or the expertise in order to be able to translate it. So I want to ask you real quick, if you want to send out a quick tweet, which is your best characteristic that you can accelerate on? Are you really good with that technology? Are you really good with the language or your expertise? Or are you really good with the skill sets and being able to communicate that language with your clients? And so what we can do is we can actually go in to see who is actually tweeting using our electronic device. So here we go. I'm going to show this for everyone. So right now we've got Ontario Association, the webinar started. Ray's tweeted in, Erie's Edge is tweeted in. So apparently we don't have too many people that are tweeting. Now would be kind of that opportunity, and I can kind of refresh. So Oria just tweeted technology, language, and skill set for performance driven. So that's kind of how this would work if you were sending out for Twitter. So you would put in the 140 characters plus the hashtag, and then that's pretty much how you can do that. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. So what are some of your goals that you want to be able to take away from this specific session? And so on the right-hand side of your screen, if you opened up the GoToMeeting or the GoToWebinar, there should be like a little chat window that you can click on, and when you open that up, you can start. Let's say if you're not using Twitter right now, then you can use the webinar chat to see what your specific goals are. So I kind of shared with you what we could potentially learn, but if we need to take this in a different direction based off of what you want to know, the last thing that I want to do is make an assumption that you need to know what I know in the order you need to know it. So for example, if you say, well, number one, I want to be able to increase sales, great. Number two is productivity, great. We can talk about that more specifically, because I can actually change these slides around right in the moment depending on what it is that you are looking for. So right now I'm just checking Twitter to see. Alyssa Williamson says, my best asset is language. Great, you've got some great expertise. The question now becomes, Alyssa, is do you have the right technology and the right skill sets to be able to transfer that in the moment? We're going to show exactly how you can do that in this specific webinar. Brian Geronimo says, technology is one of his best strengths and skill sets. So excellent. So how can you learn how to put the right language into the technology and transfer that very, very quickly so that way your customers get an experience like you've never had before? I'm just going to check the chat real quick. Alyssa says that lead generation is her weak area. Well, perfect. We're going to actually talk about that a little bit more specifically. And if you're wondering, gosh, Doug, you're talking really, really fast. Can you slow down a little bit? Well, one of the benefits of this webinar is that we're recording the video. Fortunately, you can pause the video. Unfortunately, right now, you cannot pause me. So what I'd like for you to be able to do right now is bring out your phone, and hopefully you know how to send a text message. If you can't send a text message, you won't be able to participate in this exercise. So what I'd like for you to do is send a text message. Up here at the very top, I've got the question that I'd like for you to answer via text message. So what is the one or two words that define why your business is different from everyone else in the market? You know, why are you different? Why are you unique? What is it that makes you the only one who does what you do in the way that you do it? So what you want to do is on your cell phone, when you pull out your text message application, you want to send a text message to the number 37607, and then inside of the text message, so in the message area, you're going to type in 90528, and then a space, and then the one or two words that define why your business is different from everyone else in the market. So we put up a couple samples right here. Someone said booming, another person said awesome. So if you do this correctly, what will end up happening is this will start to populate in real time for us. So excellent. Someone had typed in self-driven is what defines them as far as being different. You know, as far as activity goes, there aren't that many people who are actively prospecting for new business in the market. You'd be really surprised. Many people take passive activities instead of pro activities, which drive sales and results. Someone had typed in that systems is what makes them different. Their communication, maybe it's their communication style, or maybe it's their language. Maybe it's referrals. Excellent. So how do you leverage and get referrals in a way that you never thought of before? We're gonna talk about that. Someone says going the extra mile. So excellent. So these are kind of some things that make you different. Well, here's what I want to ask you: is as you start to look at these words, how different are they than anyone else that you can really think of? Because when you think about it, you would hope that, or a consumer would hope that you do provide good communication. A consumer would expect that you are motivated. A consumer would expect that you deliver value. So this is going to be one of those critical exercises I want you to think about after this webinar, because the more accurate you are in your thinking, the more time you take on your thinking, the easier it is going to be able to position yourself for the market. Because it doesn't necessarily matter how hard you work. You can be really efficient at doing things, but if you're doing the wrong things or focusing on the wrong customers or don't have the right scripts, then it doesn't necessarily matter. None of these things will necessarily matter as much. So if we take a look at as far as your business strategy, this is something that I got from my mentor Alan Weiss as far as positioning for strategy. I know that many people will say, as far as what it is their specific product, a real estate professional, well, gosh, I sell a house, and that's competitive with everyone else in the market. I sell a condo. I sell or maybe I lease an apartment. For a service, I can show properties. I can, maybe you've heard of the 4 Ps for a listing. Put an ad in the MLS, put an ad in the newspaper, put a sign in the yard, and pray that it sells. Everyone can do that. As far as your relationships go, everyone has a sphere of influence. Here's where I'd like for you to be able to focus in on, is what makes you different, what makes you unique. So maybe for your products, if you were to go a little bit different, you would specialize in golf course communities. Or maybe it's waterfront. And the reason why this is critically important in your strategy is because now what ends up happening is now these become the keywords that you start to put in your content marketing. It's the keywords you start to be known for as far as your marketing. Maybe for the type of service that you offer, you have some sort of online portal, which is different from a lot of real estate professionals. Maybe you have some sort of virtual concierge that no one else has. Now you probably wonder, well, gosh, what is this breakthrough at the very end? Well, when you achieve a distinctive competitive advantage in the marketplace, you can take it to the next level that most people won't by consistency, by identification of those specific needs that no one's really covering. And unfortunately, we don't have time to get into this webinar just because for the sake of time. So I would encourage you to think about what makes you distinctive right now and use that as the leverage point where you start to deliver the right language to put in, with the skill sets and technology that you're working with. Because what ends up happening as far as most people are concerned, phone duty is something that everyone else does, right? Open houses is something that everybody else does for generating new business. Most people have a website. But if you want to be different and you want to be able to be unique, maybe you have some sort of video trainings. And I've got some tools and extra bonus resources that you're able to do that. Maybe you utilize screen-to-screen selling. We're going to talk about what that is. Say, what the heck is screen-to-screen selling? It's kind of what I'm doing right now, where I'm actually able to draw on everybody's computer screen. So once you figure out what's different, unique than nobody else does, that becomes a skill set that you want to be able to develop over time. Because that way, no one will be able to keep up with you or keep up. Now, we didn't do a survey as far as where you are in your business. Let's say if you're just starting off right here, this is going to be the variable of time. Right here's what typically represents your sales. Right now you start off at 0 and then you start to increase the amount of sales and then perhaps it might level off over time. And then you also have the amount of labor, and this could also be cost too. That it starts off really, really high. I mean, you got to work your butt off in the very first part of your business, and then hopefully it decreases over time where you're not going out and doing a lot of the activities. Your staff or your team is being able to do it for you. So, and the intersection of this point is what's called the compensation equilibrium. And this is an important concept to realize, because the faster that you can reach this compensation equilibrium, the easier life starts to become. Now you notice, gosh, he spelled labor right. Is he Canadian? In fact, in Microsoft, you wouldn't. I don't know if you know this, but in Microsoft PowerPoint, the word labor, when I typed this in, it didn't pull up LABOR. Actually, had to go in and change it. So I've been to Canada enough. I know that that's how you spell labor. Anyhow, once you hit a compensation equilibrium, then you can start investing into better systems. Then you can start investing into better policies. Then you can start investing into a coach. So where then you're not necessarily doing all of the work yourself, you have other people that will be able to do it, and you focus on some performing tasks. So here's a question I always like to ask is, who is selling you right now besides yourself? Because even if we went back to increasing sales and decreasing labor intensity, if you were to go out and try to sell yourself every single day, 7 days a week, you're going to be working a whole lot harder than you have to, and chances are the competition that's young, eager, motivated are going to blow you out of the water. Why? Is because successful sales professionals have an arsenal, or they have sales professionals that are working for them on their behalf that are not paid. And what I'm talking about more specifically is referrals. Now, I know someone said that referrals is one of their strengths, and that's something I would continue to capitalize on, is because the more people that you have going out selling you on your behalf, and you almost train them how to sell you based off the information that you create, boy, you're able to get a whole lot more done than anyone else will be able to. So maybe you've seen this before, as far as the friend of your friend of your friend. But if you think about it right now, if your sphere of influence right now, let's say it's about 200 people. Now, depending on the size of the market, depending on when you get started in your business, your sphere of influence is the people who know you, like you, trust you. In other words, they're your friends. And so if your goal should be 200 people, not 500 people, not 1,000 people, not 5,000 people, 200 people. And what this represents is the sales professionals that are working on your behalf. Now, if we think about it, how many friends does the 200 friends have? Well, if you multiply 200 by 200, you get 40,000. If you multiply that by, you see where it starts to increase and increase and increase? Now, if you serve these 200 in a way that they've never been served before, chances are they're going to go out and sell you on your behalf, go into to a cocktail party, go into a sporting event. They're going to say, "Oh, by the way, did you see what Alyssa did for me? Did you see the video CMA that Ray created for me? It's something I'd never seen before. I think it's pretty cool. You better go check it out." And in fact, you've even seen on some social media sites where you'll start to see the buttons. It'll say Facebook share, it'll say Twitter share, it'll say LinkedIn, where people are starting to share your information on your behalf. That represents the 200 people, and it has the exponential effect. The more people that share something that's really, really good, it becomes a whole lot easier to be able to drive more sales. So really what it comes down to is being somebody who can help. And not just being of service face to face, but it's also being of service online. And a question I would ask you right now, just to think about it. If I were going to ask you right now, can you give me the link to a mortgage loan application? How quickly would you be able to send that to me? If I asked you for a seller's net sheet, how fast would you be able to get that to me? And this is where we're getting down to the skill sets. If I were going to ask you for a first-time home buyer rent versus own analysis, how fast would you be able to get that to me? And so what comes down to is looking at being somebody, being a way of serving people in a way that others have not been able to do in the past. So this is, I'm going to put up another visual so you can see this. And what this represents is shortening the customer service response time. So in other words, when a customer has an inquiry, how fast are you able to get them information based off of their preferred method of communication? Rewind back to last year, there was a point where AT&T had blocked my website from all the servers across the world. Anybody who's using AT&T internet service, you could not access my website. Even I couldn't access my website, and I'm an AT&T paying customer. And so what did I do? I ended up calling AT&T on a Monday. I talked to level 2 technical support 2 different times. I called in about 5 different times, and it wasn't until Thursday that I kind of started to practice what I preach. Is I sent AT&T a tweet. So I phoned them on Monday several times, all the way to Wednesday. On Thursday, I sent them a tweet. Within an hour, I got a tweet back, and they asked me for my phone number, and they end up calling me to be able to resolve my issue in 1 hour. Where I spent hours and days trying to get through them by the phone, I sent them a tweet, and then they responded to me by the phone. So this is based off of the different points. I'm just going to go right back over here. This represents your point of entry, where customers start to contact you. Now, you probably, if somebody sends you an email, maybe you can, instead of sending them an email back, they request the information back by text message. Or maybe they call you on the telephone and they say, well, gosh, just email me the answer. Or maybe somebody sometimes gets in a situation where somebody calls you on the telephone and you tell them to scroll up, scroll down, scroll up, scroll down, scroll up, scroll down, and nobody can really see what you're talking about. Maybe use a tool called join.me, which allows you to share your computer screen with them. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more. But what this represents is being a way to serve people in a way that other people won't take the time to learn, which not only positions you as an expert in the market, but it becomes easy to be able to refer you in the future. So I'm just gonna check real quick to see where we are as far as the tweets are going. Hopefully you're getting some good ideas, some things you may have never thought of before. Aurea says, who is selling you? Importance of referrals. Amy Ferris says, great question. Who is selling you? Brian Geronimo's goals. Top 3 are lead generation, increase sales, and follow up 100% of the time. Dana says, good combo of all 3 skills, technology, language required to seed. Guys, appreciate your input on Twitter. Keep sending them forward at #OREAYPN. So now we're going to talk about the intersection of value and quality. And you've probably seen something like this before. However, sometimes when you see it expressed in a different way, it has a different meaning that you've never thought of before. So let me be a little bit more specific. According to Alan Weiss's book, Value-Based Fees, how you measure value is by 3 different things. The tangible results. What do you get that's something that's tangible? And typically what that ends up being is something that has to do with money or it has to do with time. Next you have is the intangible benefits. So with the intangible value could be, was it easy to be able to work with the individual? Was it, did they meet my specific deadline? Now sometimes they could say you can add a monetary value to that, but as far as the time you're able to save, that can be something that's added on. And then you also have the peripheral benefits. And sometimes we don't, and I'll be more specific what that means. Sometimes we don't appreciate our own value because we haven't thought about it this way. I mean, if you were to recommend a few different lenders for someone to be able to talk to, or a few different inspectors to be able to talk to, do you realize how much value or how much time or money you would actually save somebody as a result? So sometimes when we go back to the three things of being a performance-driven professional, the language, the skill sets, and the technology, sometimes we need to be able to craft the right language around really communicating the value to our customer, really what it is that we do. Because you'd say, can you imagine how much time you would have to spend to save or spend on trying to find the right person? So that's a couple of different ways of looking at value. Now, as far as looking at the quality of your service that you provide, some things that you might not think of that have a tremendous benefit. So it's the completeness of your work. Did you do all of the different things that you said that you would do? That could be in your buyer agency agreement or your listing agreement, or even sometimes it's the little things that kind of go unnoticed. Something that I would do as far as the completeness is concerned, I would Google this. I'm just going to pull up a new little slide here and then come back. I would Google this. So go to google.ca and type in the critical role of the realtor. And they have a nice little PDF. You can find it somewhere. You can find it on Google if you just type it in just like that. And what it does is it lists the 180 different things that you could do during a listing for one specific listing, one listing side. For a buyer, there's obviously just as many, sometimes if not more. And so when we get down to the completeness of the specific transaction, those are specific things that you may not be doing that offer tremendous value that you could easily plug in that don't require a lot of labor. Also, if you do plug in one of those additional activities, maybe you can have one of those items outsourced by a virtual assistant, or maybe you have an administrator that handles some of that in-house. Also, as far as the quality is concerned, accuracy of information is critically important. Also, the timeliness, being able to respond back to specific inquiry. All of that leads to the quality of the different service you provide. So the intersection of where you want to be here is at the very top, high value, high quality, so that makes it a whole lot easier for people to be able to refer you. I'm just going to check Twitter real quick to see how we're doing, to see if we have any other thoughts that people are sharing. So Aria says, tangible, intangible, peripheral benefits defines value. Excellent. Be sure to keep sharing your notes on Twitter, and then also on the right-hand side of the instant message. I'm just going to check that real quick to see how we're doing. Okay, so Natasha's reaffirmed the fact that Google critical role of the realtor for the 180 things you can do for a listing. And I think that list continues to grow. So let me ask you this question. How many times have you done the following? Let's say if you're working with a buyer or a seller, you send them an attachment, or you send them the agreement, right? And you tell them to go to paragraph number 4, line item number 3. And when you email them the attachment, right, first of all, they have to know how to open up their email, and second of all, they have to know how to open up the attachment, and hopefully they have the right program to be able to open up the attachment. But anyhow, once they have the attachment open, whatever program that is, then you have to tell them to go to the specific paragraph and line item. And then something, but the challenge is you have no idea what they're looking at. You tell them to scroll down, scroll up, scroll down, scroll up, scroll down, scroll up, scroll down, scroll up, and they get frustrated, and you get frustrated. Tweet if you've ever had that happen to you, because I know that used to happen to me quite a bit. Or let's say you performed a financial analysis for a client, such as a seller's net sheet, and they wanted to they wanted to insert different variables. They wanted to change the closing costs from 500 to 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 400, and they wanted you to create them a nice little spreadsheet. Every single time they wanted to change a variable. Tweet if you've ever had that happen to you, because I know that I have. Or sometimes when identifying lines on a contract, it's easy to miscommunicate or misinterpret something because it wasn't explained correctly. I was just working with a financial advisor, and I didn't read in one of their lengthy paragraphs that it said, anytime I made a deposit into my IRA, that they're going to charge me a 5% sales commission, every single month on this. And that wasn't explained to me yet. There's going to be certain situations where you're going to want to explain complex language in a contract, and sharing your screen with someone would really be able to help. And maybe there's been a situation before where you've tried to tell somebody to go to your website and perform a search, and they have no idea how to do it. Or maybe you're telling them to look for a link that's buried because your site has so much information and you just can't find it. So what I've developed is a concept called screen-to-screen selling, how to sell yourself without being physically present. And so this is the first time that I've ever put together any type of program like this. I'm going to talk about it a little bit towards the end, but really what it does is it increases the confidence you have with out-of-town buyers and sellers. It decreases the amount of time that you spend on phone with customers, and it also eliminates weather and traffic as an excuse for not being able to communicate effectively with your clients. So hold that thought. We're gonna come back to that in a little bit as we start to move forward with the webinar. So as we're kind of reaching the midway point, or a little bit farther than midway point, what's your best takeaway so far? So go ahead and pull out Twitter real quick and tweet Doug DeVitri with pound OEREA-YPN. I'm actually going to bring this up so you can see this. Yeah, the most common, most miscommunicated question is the HST. Excellent. So here's something that I would do, Amy, is if that's a question that that continuously happens, perhaps what I would do is create a video that explains what that is step by step. Now, sometimes if you don't have the video, or you need to perform a very specific calculation, what I'm going to do here real quick is I'm actually going to show you this website that will be easy for you to be able to implement right here. And so it's called join.me. It's a free tool. I don't know if you've used it before, but really all you do is you go to the apps section and then you download it. It's going to ask you what type of computer do you have. Do you have an Apple or a Mac? Now, if you caught that, you know it's a trick question. It's the same thing. But if you have a PC, don't worry. You can download it this way. So what this program allows you to do is kind of like your free tech support. Is you're able to share your screen with people in real time. So there's only so many times you can tell a customer to go watch this video, especially if they're not tech savvy. They don't want that. So Join.me allows you to share your screen, so you're able to give that kind of concierge personal service without without being physically present. Yeah, good point, Amy. Do you really need 180 things to get a listing? Now, to clarify that, it's the 180 things you do for the life of the listing. So in other words, you have things that you do before, even before the appointment. Then there's things that you do on the appointment. Then there's things that you do to market the property. Then once it goes under contract, and then once it goes into, right before you get to closing. So just to clarify that, That's a really good question. I'm glad you brought that up. Excellent. Well, Amy, look forward to seeing your blog post about that video coming. And a good tool that you can do that as far as being able to record your videos. I guess it depends on what type of computer that you have. But what I'm going to share with you is a tool that I use consistently when I'm making different videos. It's called Camtasia. So it's owned by a company called TechSmith.com. They've got a free trial, so you can test it out. I think it's $100 on a Mac. It's $300 on a PC. Now they may change the price ever since. If you're wondering why the price difference between Mac and PC, you can go to www.askbillgates.com, and I'm sure he's got the, the answer there somewhere. But this is a tool that I use quite a bit when I'm recording some of these videos. There's different ways you can use it. So let's look forward to kind of seeing kind of what you're able to implement as a result. So go ahead and bring out your phones again. We're going to do another text message polling response to see kind of where you fit when it comes to your strategy and the operations of your business. So the reason why we do live polling for some of these things instead of asking you to tweet it out is no one likes to really admit their weaknesses in a public forum or a public environment. So what I would encourage you to do is, like we shared before, to send a text message. You're going to send the text message to the number 37607, and then you're going to type in the number that corresponds with what you have. So the first one, weak strategy, weak operations. What that really means is that you don't have a business plan. Or maybe you do have a business plan, but it's not differentiated or it's not very strong in terms of being out there. A strong strategy, weak operations. So great, you have a business plan. Maybe it is differentiated. And a good book to read on strategy, if strategy is something that you might be a little weak in, is read Michael Porter's book, Competitive Strategy. Very solid in terms of identifying your strategy in a competitive type of market. So maybe you have a strong operations. Maybe you already have a team in place. Maybe you already have great systems and great tools, and they start to work together. But you're not getting the business that you want because maybe you are kind of like everybody else. You do phone duty, you do lead generation, but it's very hard to be able to identify that. And then number 4 is that you do have a strong strategy, a strong operations. You're able to grow consistently over time, and that really becomes a point of distinction where you're able to keep on capitalizing on it. So even if you do have a strong strategy and strong operations, you can continue to build off that. You don't necessarily want to settle for where you are. So this is really good input as far as where do you need the most help with. Now it's only a couple off, but really kind of gives you an idea where everybody else is on the call. So there's some tools that are out there that will help save you time. And if I were going to ask you to be able to prioritize these specific categories, where do you think number 1 would be? And so you could say, well, gosh, I really need help on my channels for my operations. I need better lead generation online. I need better social media exposure and building my referrals and relationships. You might say, well, it's value propositions. I really don't know what my distinctive value is in the specific market. Maybe sometimes, if you're in a shift and you're trying to go from, move up in price points, maybe you need to identify new target customers. Maybe you need to start identifying doctors or attorneys or financial planners. Especially if you're getting into investment properties, really like defining who your customer segments can be a really big deal. And so what ends up happening is once you start to plug in some of these items, it's kind of like putting Post-it notes everywhere. What ends up happening is it starts to look like this. Now please keep in mind, now I just did this, I've already had this preloaded, right? But it's going to take some really some critical thought to determine what it is. But please understand this. It's the value that's communicated to the customer segment. It's the value that determines what the revenue stream is. It's the value that's communicated into the channels. It's the value that has to operate within the specific cost. It's the value that has to be managed using the right resources. It's the value that has to be delivered using the key activities. It's the value that your key partners go out and do some of the marketing for you. Now, in order to have, because this is, we just did the quick, 1 minute version of this. What I'd like to share with you, what this tool is, it's called the Business Model Generator. So this is an iPad app that you can download, and I think the cost for it's like $30. So it is an expensive app. Or you can get it online at Strategizer, that's a G, strategizer.com. So that's how you create all the little sticky notes. And even if you go in, I'm just going to erase some of these things. Even once you start to go in and you start to add in the numbers, like right here I have 1 for first-time home buyer. Well, maybe there's really 50 first-time home buyers, and you can tell that based off of the demographics or the sales, depending on how it's reported within the surveys that are produced. Maybe either by your association, or maybe it's by other types of data sources. And then finally, at the revenue streams, you can actually calculate the amount of money. And at the here's the cost. And at the end, here's your profit and loss. Now that's a quick way to be able to develop your business plan. Now, you might not necessarily need to do this if you're good and you're strong on your strategy, but if this is somewhere where you're really lacking, it can really help you develop some focus fairly quickly. Then you have to wonder, as far as decision making goes, what kind of tool can you use to start to create the process for this? This is mind starts to wander, and all these different things that you can do. You don't want to try and do everything that's out there. You only want to focus in on the core things that are going to be able to drive you business. So one of the tools that I really like to use is a tool called MindMeister. That's I don't know if you can see it, but it's MindMeister. MindMeister.com. It's a German company, believe it or not. What you can do is, let's say you're working with first-time home buyers, then you could say, well, what are the steps in the process of working with the first-time home buyer? Well, first of all, they have to be pre-approved. Next, they have to sign buyer agency agreement. Next, you have to set them up to go preview properties. Now, as far as being pre-approved, there's other things that are considered with that. They have to have a credit score. They have to, meet with the lender, etc. So you kind of get the point. Now, this mind map becomes kind of a quick way for you to help make decisions. You could also use this to determine what type of technology that you want to use. Because if you say right here, this is, I need for lead generation, think of all the different online tools that exist for lead generation and how many different alternatives come from each one of those. So MindMeister is a great way to kind of get your head onto paper to be able to implement some of these ideas. Also, there's a really good book that is about mind mapping. It's written by Tony Buzan on mind mapping. So if you go to Amazon or go to any digital, go to bookstore, look for Tony Buzan's book on mind mapping. And one of the things that he says is, what ends up happening is if you start to mind map your notes after you take them, it increases the likelihood that you're going to be able to implement it, because mind mapping is the visual activation of the process of knowledge. Also, if you want another good resource on learning how to learn very quickly, learningstrategies.com is a great resource. So hopefully we're having some fun. We're getting some good ideas. MindMeister is definitely a tool I use quite a bit. Now, depending on where you are in your business, ideally, this is where we'd all like to be. We'd all would like to be a master, or we'd all like to be an expert in our business. But if you're new and you're just starting out, the question is how do you go from student to master as quickly as possible? So here's something that I would recommend doing is that when you go learn, let's say if you, there's different ways that you can learn, right? Number one is audio. You know, Brian Tracy says to turn your car into mobile university. You can actually get books through there. You can also get them from iTunes. If you search on iTunes for the word HubSpot, you can have access to like 40 different webinars on online marketing and social media. I'm just going to write in HubSpot because they're a great tool, great learning resource center. Another, obviously Amazon, etc. Those are probably my top two of places where I go to learn some of these things. So after you go and you learn something, or maybe you go to your local association and take a class on the MLS, what I would do is I would do one of three things. I would create a video that summarizes what you've learned. Or I would write a blog post that summarizes what I've learned. Or I would create a visual that demonstrates what I've learned. Because true mastery happens when you're able to teach it to somebody else. So when you're out there as a student, you're learning new ideas and you're learning new concepts and you're starting to implement in your business. Start to create your interpretation of what it means to you, create the interpretation of what it means to your market, and that way you'll become a master much quicker than your competition will ever be, or even be able to keep up with. That, my friends, is huge. As far as your operations concerned, if you take a look at Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, he says to work on your business, not in your business. The sales professional out of Oklahoma, Lawton, Oklahoma, Jay Kinder, he made I think this is a year and a half ago, said that he made $200,000 net and did not step into his office. Why? Is because he created a team of professionals that worked all the systems for him, and he wasn't tied to anything. So what you can think about as far as your team's considered, and this may seem a little complex at first, but that's okay. You have the CEO, which is hopefully you. You have the marketing coordinator. You have the graphic designer. You have the copywriter. The individual who writes words for your website or for your email campaign or for your print marketing. Those are the words that influence to sell. You have your web guy who's the hoster that goes and fixes the little things that you don't have time to do. Maybe you have somebody for SEO. Each one of those individuals are responsible for a specific task. So this could be anything for operational as far as your business. So you have to ask yourself, am I operating at a 10% or am I operating at an 80%? Or ideally, we'd like to be 100%, but it's not. That's not always realistic. So if operation is something that you really lack, perhaps I would spend some time on the mapping of your business. Now, you probably wonder what different tools are out there that I can create. Create these. The iPad app that I really like is called Graphio. So this little visual back here, how did I make that? I used a tool called Graphio. Another one that integrates with Google Docs is called Draw.io. And then there's some other ones that are out there. I think for PC, there's Smart Draw. So I mean, there's a lot of different apps and tools that do the same thing. What you're talking about is business, or it's called BPI, Business Process Improvement. Go back here. You have input, output. But until you take the time to map this out for somebody else, no one will do the job adequately the way you want them to, because they have no idea how the system is that you mapped out. That's one of the biggest challenges that I had when I wanted to grow my business, is I did not have any process maps any my virtual staff were able to accomplish. Now, if you're still using your text message, I would encourage you to, I don't know if you've done this before, but what you can do is you can go to, if you send a text message to 32665, so bring out your phones real quick if you haven't done this already. Go to 32665, and then if you type in the message like, and then Doug DeVitri delivers, I'm going to send out a link after this webinar to those people who like my business page. It's going to be something that I haven't shared yet. It's going to have tremendous value, so if you want to be able to have access to it, you can go ahead and real quickly and like the page, so that way you'll be able to receive it. And again, think about this too for your campaign. If you want people to like your own Facebook page, Facebook has that text message capability, very similar to this. Pretty neat, huh? So we've got some good things going on Twitter. This is probably one of the biggest things that I wish I would have learned more about earlier in my business, is how to be able to outsource, or how to be able to find people. If you go to a site called Odesk, I'm just going to log in real quick, and I'm going to show you kind of what this looks like. Is you can actually find people to be able to help you. Very similar to this site called Fiverr, Fiverr. You'd be surprised what people are willing to do for $5, especially when it comes to producing items for your videos, some images. Some very creative work can be done by finding on Fiverr. So if I wanted to recruit somebody, I would just even type in real estate, because you want somebody who's real estate specific. Assistant, click for search, and you'll find a variety of different contracts that will help you. Well, gosh, 9,000 is a lot to choose from. Well, I only want to work with people who have 4.5 to 5 stars. See how that number goes down? Then I bring it down to $15 an hour. See how that number goes down? Then I go into more options. I want somebody who's worked within at least the last month, because if they're not working, I don't want them. See how the numbers go down? Hours billed. I want somebody who has at least 100 hours. Now, depending on how many people come up, then I'll go to at least 1,000 hours. So it goes from 2,000 down to 1,400. Well, gosh, I need to make sure that they speak English 5 out of 5. Then you start to use other qualifiers. And what ends up happening is you start to get down to somebody who, the list starts to get shorter, so it might seem overwhelming. There's a lot of people to choose from. With the stricter criteria, you find the best people that are able to work for you. Very similar to Fiverr. If I needed help doing some imaging, for my site. Go to graphic design. I always sort by the highest rated. And then I have some options to be able to create some logos, or to create some banner images, etc. A lot of great tips to be able to help you save you a ton of time. So I've shared with you the very first time ever the process of screen-to-screen selling. You can use these for webinars, you can use these for clients, you can use these for presentations. And really what ends up happening, I'm actually going to show this to you in a way you've never seen before, is of how this specifically works. Probably wondering, gosh, this is crazy. How does this end up happening? Well, right here's my computer screen. My computer, like my laptop. And then I have another screen. Now, let's say if I'm doing a live presentation, which I'm going to be doing March 4th in Toronto, you'll be able to witness this live. That would be the projection screen. And then right here is my iPad. And then right here is my WP, my webinar participant, or my client, whoever. This is me right here, big smiley face, holding my iPad with one arm, my microphone with the second arm, and then with my third arm, I'm actually drawing on my iPad. So whatever happens on my computer shows on my iPad. Whatever happens on my computer also shows on the projection screen. Also, what ends up showing on my computer can also show on other participants, especially if you have multiple decision makers of the process. If you have a wife that's in, if you have a wife that's in one province and a cousin in another state, but they all need to be a part of the decision-making process. This is how you would hook it up. Now, how I go from computer to iPad is using a tool called Doceri. How I'm going from computer to webinar participant or by client is using the tool called Join.me. Now there's a specific methodology that I've learned by doing this, I don't know how many hundreds of times, that will save you a lot of headaches and a lot of mistakes by doing this the wrong way, because I have done this wrong where it's very easily to be able to turn this off, especially if you're using this in the sales or the influence process. So this is called screen to screen selling. Now, if you like that, you want to learn more, I've enabled in my my online store that this is only for OREA YPN members. The first 50 people will get 50% off today. There's a couple different options. The best value was the one that has the how-to videos with the professional PowerPoints. Again, you will see this again and again, because what ends up happening is the amount of time pressure that we have it keeps increasing, and believe me, there is nothing better than face-to-face. This is your next best thing to face-to-face. So we've covered a lot of information here. I'm looking forward to seeing what your tweets are from this webinar. We've got the presentation. Hopefully we'll see you live. Be sure to come up and let me know how the webinar went during the live event. We'll connect with you online through Facebook and Twitter. I'd like to know what your best takeaway is, so if you would please send one last tweet of what your best takeaway is. Make sure you include my Twitter name and the OREA YPN hashtag, and so that way we can continue this conversation offline.